I am Sanchia, and welcome to Be Still and Grow, a space for honest conversations about faith, growth, and becoming who God designed us to be. Here, we slow down to listen, to reflect, and lean into the lessons hidden in life's transitions. Whether we're navigating change, waiting on a promise, or walking through pruning seasons, remember, growth isn't about striving, it is about surrender. Each week, we'll explore real stories, biblical insights, and gentle reminders to trust God's plans, even when it doesn't make sense. So take a deep breath, be still, and let's grow together. I love having you here. We'd like to hear some of your stories. See you. Hi guys, how are we feeling? Today's topic is prioritizing self-love. Who is the self we're called to love? Yesterday was Valentine's Day. Happy belated Valentine's Day. It is a day many celebrate love, even those who may not know or love themselves. And that raises an important question. Before we love anyone else, we must first love ourselves. But who are we when we are single? And who is the self when we're married with children? I posed this question in our group and received a mixture of responses. What is your response? When love becomes comparison. I remember a friend. She has since passed away, but she used to ask me every year, what did you get for Valentine's Day? One year, I told her, chocolate and flowers. She responded, just that? At that time, I was perfectly content. I love chocolate. I love fresh flowers. It was thoughtful and meaningful to me. But somewhere along the line, many of us began to believe that if a gift is not flashy enough, it must not be sincere. The question, just that, could easily have planted dissatisfaction. It could have caused comparison. It could have made me question whether what I had was enough. It didn't work. Yet, as I reflect over my life, I can see how this pattern shows up repeatedly. I have even been that person to ask others questions like that. Sometimes people project their dissatisfaction onto our lives. If we are not careful, we take the bait. We begin comparing. We begin questioning. We begin losing sight of who we are. And that is where self-love becomes essential. What is self-love? Self-love, some call it self-care, is about appreciating ourselves through actions that support our physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, and spiritual well-being. It is more than bubble baths and face masks, although those are wonderful too. It includes strengthening our spiritual foundation, growing mentally and emotionally, nurturing the right relationships, planning our financial future, resting, and enjoying recreation. But before we can truly love ourselves, we must know ourselves. If I asked you, who are you? You might respond with your name and your profession. But we are more than labels, more than roles, more than achievements. When we want to understand a product, what do? We look for the manufacturer's manual, or we may Google it. As a believer, the starting point for understanding humanity is found in the Bible. It says in Genesis 1:27 that humanity was created in the image of God. But isn't it men who wrote the Bible? Why should we believe? In 2 Timothy 3:16-17, scripture is described as useful for teaching and guidance. For believers, knowing the Creator helps us to understand who we are. Over time, we begin to recognize our strengths, or gifts, weaknesses, natural abilities, personality, or passions, and or purpose. But what if someone does not believe in God or read the Bible? Is there another way? Psychology often teaches that we're composed of a body and mind. Yet, even within psychology, there is strong emphasis on core values. Core values are deeply ingrained beliefs that guide decision and shape behavior. They define identity and they are spiritual. Interestingly, when we compare common psychological core values such as kindness, compassion, integrity, growth, you will find that they closely mirror the characteristics modeled by Jesus in the New Testament. He modeled love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. These are also called the fruit of the Spirit. Whether one approaches this from a biblical standpoint or from psychology, the principle remains. However, psychology will also tell us that we need to choose 5 or less core values to live by. I call these the right core values. And for us, this is kindness, forgiveness, compassion, family or community, and growth. They are the values Jesus exhibited while he was here on earth. When we live aligned with these right core values, we find ourselves. When we live by fear or comparison, materialism, we lose ourselves. Understanding the whole self. I love to grow. If I am not careful, I will overwork or leave others behind. And so I decided some time ago that I had to get rid of these traits in my life. We are complex beings with a spirit, soul, some call it the heart, and body, not just a mind and a body or a brain. To thrive, growth must be holistic. Here are areas to consider. Spiritual well-being. For believers, spiritual alignment begins with God. 3 John 1:2 speaks of prospering and being in health as the soul prospers. Spiritual growth often influences every other area of our lives. Physical well-being, exercise, nutrition, rest, sunlight, and care for our bodies matter. We are not just minds. We inhabit physical bodies that require attention. Mental well-being. Learning and intellectual growth are important. But so is balance. What we are feeding our minds. Are we aligned with our deeper structure and value? Emotional well-being. Emotions should not be ignored, nor allowed to dominate. Therapy, reading healing literature, listening to empowering talks, learning emotional regulation, learning the language of emotions can help us grow. The will. Now, this is an area that many of us do not really understand. We have free will and we make choices daily. In John 14:6, Jesus says, He is the way, the truth, and the life. Whether one interprets that spiritually or symbolically, it highlights intentional choice. We must choose the direction of our lives. What will we choose? Relational well-being. Healthy relationships are built on shared values, trust, patience, and growth. Shared values. No one is perfect, but we can choose relationships that support who we're becoming. Financial well-being. Financial stability is not merely about earning more money. It's about wise stewardship, making informed decisions, and ensuring money supports purpose, not replace it. Recreational well-being. Rest is not laziness. It is necessary. Even in scripture, God rests. Passion, creativity, and enjoyment are part of a full life. Who is the self in marriage and parenthood? When we are single, the self may seem easier to define. When we are married with children, roles multiply. Spouse, parent, provider, nurturer, leader. But the self is not erased by marriage. It is not dissolved by motherhood or fatherhood. The authentic self is the structure underneath the roles, the values, the identity, the calling. If we abandon that core self, we eventually feel resentment, exhaustion, or emptiness, or dissatisfaction. Loving ourselves in marriage and family does not mean selfishness. It means remaining aligned with our values so we can show up whole for those we love. Finally, Valentine's Day will come and go each year. Flowers will fade, chocolate will be eaten, but the deeper question remains, do we know who we are? Are we living aligned with our core values? Are we moving from a place of love or fear, growth or comparison? Whether we find our answers through the Bible, through psychology, or a combination of both, the principle is the same. When we truly know ourselves and live aligned with truth and the right values, we experience real love, not just on Valentine's Day, but every day. So I ask again, who are you? And are you loving yourself? With gratitude and growth. Have a great day.